There are moments in life when the darkness doesn't just knock on your door, it moves in. You trusted, you loved, you gave. And in return, you were lied to, used, abandoned, not by strangers, but by the very people you believed would protect your heart. And when it broke, it wasn't just pain, it was betrayal. There's a kind of suffering that doesn't scream, it just silently tears at your soul while the world keeps moving like nothing happened. And in that silence, you wonder, does anyone see? Does anyone care? Will they ever pay for what they did? Or do they just walk free? But listen carefully. There is a justice deeper than human courts. There is an order higher than this broken world. And that justice never sleeps. The people who tried to shatter you, they didn't just attack a person. They struck at something sacred. And when you strike what is sacred, you awaken God. Moral order is not optional. It's easy to believe that life is random when you're in pain. When someone betrays you, lies to you, or abandons you at your lowest, the immediate conclusion your mind draws is, this world isn't fair. And at first glance, it truly doesn't seem like it is. People deceive without consequence. They manipulate, hurt, and discard others as if there will never be a price to pay. They move on. They laugh. They post pictures as if nothing happened. And you're left behind trying to rebuild something they didn't even try to understand. Your soul, your dignity, your peace. But there is something they don't understand. Something ancient. Something not built by human hands. And that is the moral order of life. It doesn't make headlines. It doesn't shout for attention. But it is always operating, always balancing the scales, not with vengeance, but with precision. People think morality is just a social agreement, a set of cultural rules that shift with time. But the truth is far deeper. Morality is embedded in the very structure of existence. It's not an opinion, it's a law, much like gravity. You don't break moral law, you break yourself against it. Those who intentionally cause harm to the innocent, those who lie, manipulate, and destroy without remorse, they are not escaping justice just because no one calls them out. What they have done has already set something in motion. Their actions carry weight, spiritual, psychological, and existential. Whether they believe it or not, the universe has already responded. Not with lightning or fire, but with the quiet and irreversible erosion of their own character, their peace, their soul. People often think divine justice must look like fire from the sky, but most of the time it comes in much subtler forms. Emptiness that can't be filled, relationships that keep breaking down, an anxiety that follows them no matter how high they rise. They wonder why peace escapes them, why guilt whispers when the world goes quiet. That's not coincidence. That's not karma. That's moral law remembering what they did and returning it, piece by piece, until the debt is paid. So if you've been broken by others, not by mistake, but by their choice, remember this. You are not forgotten by the deeper order. The pain they gave you did not vanish into the air. It was recorded, it was seen, and the weight of it will not disappear until the balance has been restored. That's not revenge. That's not bitterness. That's simply the way the world works when it was created with justice at its foundation. The one who suffers righteously is not powerless. When someone wrongs you deeply, when they betray you, humiliate you, or try to dismantle your spirit, it's easy to feel like they've taken everything, that they've stolen not only your peace, but also your voice, your strength, even your future. You walk through life with this ache in your chest, carrying memories like wounds that never quite close. And the people who caused this, they move on as if nothing happened. They wear smiles that feel like mockery, as if your suffering is invisible or irrelevant. In those moments, you can't help but feel powerless, as if your silence is defeat and your pain is wasted. But that's not the truth. It never was. There is a quiet power in suffering righteously, a power that doesn't look like the world's definition of strength. It doesn't shout, it doesn't retaliate, and it doesn't need to make a spectacle. It endures. It absorbs the blow without losing its moral center. And that kind of suffering, the kind where you refuse to become what hurt you, is not weakness. It's one of the most powerful forces in existence. When you suffer righteously, you align yourself with something sacred. You refuse to let darkness turn you into a mirror of itself. And even if no one sees the choice you made, even if the world never claps for your restraint, the deeper structure of life does not overlook it. There's something holy about enduring pain without letting it distort your soul. That kind of endurance has weight. It has meaning and it has consequence. People often mistake silence for surrender, but silence in suffering, when it is held with integrity, becomes a witness. It testifies. It says, I could have returned what was done to me, but I didn't. Not because I was too weak, but because I was too strong. Strong enough to hold my dignity when others abandoned theirs. Strong enough to trust that justice doesn't always need to be loud. And strong enough to believe that what is true eventually rises. The truth is, when someone hurts you deliberately and you respond with righteousness, when you don't stoop to their level, when you keep your character intact, you expose their actions for what they are. You shine a light on their cruelty, not with revenge, but with contrast. And in time, the weight of that contrast becomes unbearable for them. Guilt isn't always immediate, but it always comes when the heart tries to reconcile who someone has become with what they once pretended to be. And nothing exposes a person's conscience more than being shown silent strength in the face of betrayal. You may feel like your suffering was wasted, but righteous suffering is never wasted. It becomes a seed buried deep beneath the surface. And though it may be hidden for a while, it grows into something unshakable. Wisdom, resilience, discernment, and yes, justice. So if you're hurting, if someone has tried to shatter your sense of worth, and you've chosen not to repay them with the same cruelty, know this: you are not weak, you are not forgotten, you are standing on sacred ground. And though the world may not reward you right away, the order of the universe has already shifted in your favor. There is immense power in pain endured with honor. And one day, it will speak louder than anything they ever did to you. What was meant to break you became sacred fire. There are moments when you feel like your soul has been taken apart piece by piece. Not by circumstance, but by people. People you let in. People you believed in. They didn't just hurt you, they tried to hollow you out, to reduce you, to make you question your own worth, your own sanity. They pushed you to a point where you began to wonder if the pain would ever stop, or if this version of you, broken, confused, ashamed, was permanent. And yet, here you are, breathing, standing, even if it's barely. Even if you still carry the weight of what happened, you're still here. That fact alone says something profound. Because there's a mysterious truth woven into the fabric of this life. What was meant to destroy you can, if you allow it, transform you instead. The fire they tried to drown you in wasn't ordinary fire. It was sacred. Not because the pain was good, it wasn't, but because of what it had the potential to create. See, pain is a strange kind of teacher. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't justify its presence. But it refines, it reveals. When you walk through suffering, especially the kind inflicted by betrayal, You come face to face with who you are without the applause, without the approval, without the illusion. And what you discover in that place is strength. Not the surface level confidence you wore before, but something deeper, something unshakable. You begin to see the truth about yourself, about others, about the world. You learn what loyalty really means, what love should look like, what silence can teach you. And most of all, you learn to stop looking to broken people to tell you what you're worth. The very fire they thought would consume you begins to burn away everything false. It strips the masks, the naivety, the need for validation. And in that burning, you are not diminished, you are defined, you are being forged. Because sacred fire doesn't destroy the pure, it reveals them. It tempers the soul like steel in the hands of a master. And after the flames pass, you find that what remains is stronger, wiser, not harder, not bitter, but clearer, and far more difficult to deceive. The ones who tried to break you thought they were in control. They thought they could script the end of your story. But what they didn't understand is that you were not just a victim in their drama. You were a character in a far greater narrative, one that doesn't end in despair, but in revelation. And sometimes, the only way to discover the truth of your worth is to have it tested in the fire of betrayal. You may still carry the scars, and that's okay. Scars are not signs of failure, they are signs of survival, proof that the fire came and that it didn't win. Every scar holds a story of pain that became wisdom. Every tear became the water that tempered the flame. And now you stand not as someone who merely survived, but as someone who was transformed by what was meant to break you. So no, the fire wasn't the end of you. It was the beginning. It was sacred. And one day, the same fire that refined you will become the light that exposes those who tried to destroy you, because you rose not in spite of what they did, but through it. And that is something no one can take from you. Those who harm the innocent invite collapse. There is something deeply unnatural about seeing someone hurt another person who meant them no harm. There's a heaviness in it, almost like the soul itself recoils when it witnesses cruelty without cause. When someone lies to you, manipulates you, mocks your vulnerability, or discards you after pretending to care, they don't just damage your heart, they damage something much bigger, something moral, something eternal. What they don't realize, and what many people fail to understand, is that harm against the innocent is never neutral. It's never just a mistake or a bad choice that life forgets. There is always a consequence, not because you force it, not because you wish it, but because life is built to respond. Not in an instant, not always in ways you can see, but over time and always with precision. Those who harm the innocent don't just walk away clean. They carry with them a slow, invisible weight. They may not feel it at first, because life, in its mercy, often gives them time to reflect, time to correct. But if they continue, if they refuse to acknowledge the wrong, if they keep rewriting the story to make themselves the victim and the innocent the villain, then the weight grows. It follows them into relationships, into quiet moments, into their sleep, into their future. They might rise in the world, they might get applause, attention, even success, but what they don't know is that the foundation beneath them is slowly cracking. Because you cannot violate trust, betray loyalty, and treat someone's soul like it's disposable without also fracturing your own soul in the process. The collapse rarely comes all at once. It's not always dramatic. Often, it's subtle, a slow unraveling, a loss of joy, a string of broken connections, an anxiety they can't explain, a growing sense of emptiness that nothing fills. And here's the hard truth: you don't have to be there to see it. You don't have to get the apology. You don't need to watch them fall. Because the collapse they face isn't a show for your comfort, it's a mirror for their conscience. And once it begins, no amount of pretending can silence it. That's what guilt does. It hides, but it doesn't die. It waits. And when the noise of their life dies down, it speaks. That's why you don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything. The very fact that they tried to harm what was pure and did it without remorse means they have already invited something into their life that will undo them. It may take time, it may not be visible to the world, but it will happen, because no one escapes the weight of their choices forever, especially when those choices were made with pride and cruelty. And maybe the most powerful truth of all is this: your healing is not dependent on their downfall. Their collapse may come, but that is not your fuel. You rise not because they fall, but because you were never meant to stay broken. And the more you heal, the more their actions stand exposed, not by you, but by the light you carry now. That is the real justice. So, don't chase their ruin. Don't waste your energy watching their path. Trust that the ones who harm the innocent have already set something in motion, not by your hand, but by their own. And one day, when the silence grows loud and the guilt can no longer hide, they'll realize what they did. And by then, you'll be far ahead, living in a strength they never expected you to find. God does not forget. There's a particular kind of loneliness that sets in after deep betrayal, not just emotional but spiritual. It's the silence that comes when justice doesn't arrive when you expect it. When the people who hurt you seem to flourish while you're left picking up the shattered pieces of your life. You cry out in pain, in confusion, maybe even in anger, and all you hear in return is silence. And that silence can start to feel like abandonment, as if even God himself looked away. But what you must remember, and what your soul needs to know, is that God does not forget. Not your tears, not your prayers whispered through clenched teeth, not the nights you begged for relief, not the moments you bit your tongue instead of lashing out. Every choice you made to stay kind, to stay soft-hearted, to not let pain harden you, all of it is remembered, not by the world, not by the ones who wronged you, but by the one who sees what no one else does. There is a sacred record being written in silence, and just because it's unseen doesn't mean it's unreal. You see, divine justice doesn't operate on human schedules. It isn't hurried by our emotions or manipulated by our impatience. God's justice moves with clarity, with wisdom, and with a timing that is often painfully slow, but profoundly exact. We often want immediate correction. We want to see the people who broke us fall as quickly as they rose. But real justice, the kind that comes from above, is not about spectacle. It's about alignment. It's about restoring what was violated. Truth, trust, dignity, love. And sometimes that restoration begins not with their punishment, but with your healing. Because the most powerful justice of all isn't when they suffer. It's when you rise and they are left to face what they did in the light of your growth. But still, know this: the tears they caused, they echo. The betrayal they committed, it lives on in the reality they have to face when the noise dies down. And the longer they go without acknowledging it, the heavier it becomes. It might not show up on their faces, but it eats at the roots. It erodes peace. It shapes relationships. It bends the direction of their future. Because you can't wrong someone deeply and walk away untouched. Not when God is watching. So no, your suffering wasn't wasted. And no, the ones who broke you, they didn't get away with it. They may have escaped the opinions of people, but they did not escape the gaze of the divine. And that gaze doesn't forget. It doesn't lose track. It doesn't sleep. It works slowly, yes, but with piercing accuracy. One day, the very people who tried to crush you will sit alone with the full weight of what they did, not because you cursed them, but because truth always returns. And by then, you won't need their apology. You won't crave their regret, because you'll have become something far greater than what they tried to destroy. You will have healed. You will have risen. And you will have walked through fire that did not consume you, because God carried you when no one else saw it. Let them live with their choices. Let them sit in the silence they created, because your story isn't in their hands, it's in God's. And God never forgets.